Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Open House. We have all our trimester 3 students. Of course, it's a full batch of 148 plus students, but I think over 70 of them have joined today, 70, 75, I think, which is a decent number. So this session basically will help students to choose their specializations in the coming trimester. Once the exams are over, then the next session will start. So we are doing this before that so that they will understand what entails in the coming specializations. Maybe they may have some doubts or something like that. So which is why we have gathered all our distinguished professors so that they can speak a little about each of their specializations. I will go through every specialization one by one, and then each of the faculty can speak about the respective specializations. Once that is done, the students will follow up with a Q&A. The students will have any questions, the respective faculties can address them. By end of the day, I'll be sharing the Google form link to all our students, and they can choose their specializations as per what clarity they got from the respective faculty. And we will close the form by next Sunday, 9th of, 2nd of January. End of the day, we will close the form, and then we will publish it by the coming week, the week after that. And in the same week, we will have the next capstone capstone meeting. Because, as per the specialization, the students are expected to do their, capstone project. So we will give them some good time before the next session begins, and they can start thinking about it and all that. So Malti ma'am, is it a good window for us to keep it between 3rd to 9th of January?
Yeah, yes, it is. We can keep during that weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the weekdays, 7 to 8, we can keep the capstone session meeting. I'm sure we will have more people coming in. It's a Sunday, and many people are traveling today. So I think between 3 and 7 of next week, we can keep the capstone, meeting. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Before we start the session, I would just like to take the screenshot of this thing. This is only for records purposes, etc. So I would request everyone to turn their video on if you don't mind, so that I can, request everybody to please turn on your video. Thank you. Just 2 minutes. I'll be done with this. Okay, thank you, everyone. So I'm sharing the screen, and I'll just take you through the specializations, etc. So welcome, my dear faculty and my students and my colleagues to our open house for trimester 3 students. This is a very important, an extremely important event for our students, because they'll be really choosing their specializations. So these are the specializations that our students will get to choose. There are 10 specializations for all of them: human resources, finance management, marketing management, business analytics, IT management, supply chain operations, entrepreneurship, project management, and lastly but not the least, global business. So out of these specializations, the student will have to choose one of them. So before they get to choose, I will allow each of our faculty to speak a little or two about the specialization. So we'll start with HRM. In today's session, we have Anand sir, we have Chandrasekhar sir, and we have Professor Commander Joshi. Anand sir, please, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Professor Rajan. Good morning, everybody. My name is Anand Pofli. I teach HRM in addition to other subjects, but for Executive MBA, I teach Human Resource Management, and within that, Performance Management is the subject I teach. Now, as you see, there are three subjects. I will be talking about the first one, and Performance Management, while it sits in HRM specialization, it's about organization performance management, right? So I teach it from the point of view of that this subject is in a cross section of business strategy and human resource management, right? So I just want that to be clear to everybody. This is more as a business strategy subject than actually an HRM subject, while there are several elements of human resource management in it, right? So with that, what all is covered in this subject? So it starts from performance planning, right? So we touch upon business strategy. We don't discuss how business strategy is developed, obviously. We don't discuss that in this, but we start from business strategy, mission, vision, and business strategy, and see how goal definition is done at the organization level, how goals are set, financial goals and non-financial goals, qualitative, quantitative goal, objectives, business objectives, how they are set, right? And what are various methods of setting objectives, critical success factor, key result areas, key performance areas, key performance indicators, what these are, how do you identify, and so on and so forth. And there are several strategies, approaches, right, to identify these. So we discussed that in detail for 2 sessions. And then performance management process, which involves appraisal, performance monitoring, performance managing, and so on. So that all this, how a good performance appraisal system is created, right, in practice. So I'll give a lot of practical examples. A lot of case studies will be there. HBR case studies will be taught for real companies. So there are about 5 case studies I will teach during the course. So performance appraisal and performance monitoring, right? What is mentor and mentee framework, and how it can be rolled out in companies. Other than that, there is something called performance management frameworks that is used in organization, like balance scorecard. A balance scorecard is actually it's a tool which is used to track and monitor the progress of business strategy. So balance scorecard, again, we'll discuss in very much in detail with 2 case studies. That is a framework to manage performance in the organization. In addition to that, there is a framework called DuPont framework. We'll discuss that. It's more for financial management, financial performance, and also there is a Porter's value chain framework, which is a very holistic performance management framework. You would have heard Porter's value chain in business strategy also, but it is also used for performance management, right? So that's overall a summary. Just to recap, how performance management is part of business strategy, why it sits in HR, defining goals for an organization, taking that to people level, because ultimately people are the ones who perform in the organization, right? You may have machinery, plant machinery, departments, products, processes, business strategy. All these aspects you can measure performance. You can measure performance of business strategy also. You can measure performance of organization structure also. But it's human resource actually which drives the performance is everything, whether it's the processes or products, or plant and machinery, or departments, or a project, right? Whatever. So at the crux of it is the human resource. That's the reason it sits in the human resource management specialization. And so we do discuss performance at people level, right? Going to the business strategy level. So let me stop here in case there are questions. I believe questions you're going to take, Rajan, now, or you're going to take it towards the end?
So we'll take it at the end of the.
Somebody is asking, can we pitch in to the questions.
Mr. Yadunandan, we will take it at the end of the session, please, because many faculties are waiting to finish off their bit. Yeah. So whoever has a question, we'll come to that particular slide. We'll pause and then take the questions, and then we'll go back to the next one. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
Learning and development. Next, I would like to call upon Professor Commander Joshi. Joshi, sir, over to you, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Let's hope that the coming year happens to be a brilliant one as against the last two. I will be teaching you people learning and development. Okay, in this, the importance of this particular subject is that L&D as a field of study has not yet penetrated very deeply into the Indian corporate structures. Just around 15% is the penetration of L&D into the HR systems of organizations, which means that there is an immense scope for L&D professionals. And with this kind of with the work from home and work away from office and all these hybrid concepts and various other new trends emerging, you would find that this is going to be a very interesting potential career choice of the future, being a L&D professional. We will be we'll be learning about what learning organizations are. We'll be learning about knowledge management. We'll be learning about how to create learning objectives for an organization. How we'll be talking about error management training for both at the workshop level or at the supervisory level or even at the higher management level. Then once you have committed yourself to L&D, whether L&D has actually taken place or not is what we are going to focus upon. Okay, which effectively means transference of training, whether the effort has actually resulted in some qualitative behavioral alteration towards the workspace. We'll also be studying about what motivates people in the organizations and the organizations to learn, primarily from the human capital aspect, and how investment in learning and development towards human capital can bring about effective improvement of organizations' bottom lines. So it's a huge module which has been compressed into great 6 sessions, and if required, an additional session. We'll be having your assignments will be largely based upon existing cases, and I look forward to seeing you in your 4th sem. And if there are any questions, more than welcome. Thank you, sir. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. I'd next like to call upon Professor Chandrasekhar PK. Sir, over to you. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, Professor Rajan, and good morning, professors and my dear students. It's a great pleasure interacting with you. And in this next forthcoming session, I would be taking the subject of compensation management. Taking from where Dr. Anand Popli had started, that he was mentioning that the human resources is the crux of any organization. Ultimately, it is the human resources or the human capital which gets the results in the organization. So is it not important that they should be compensated well? Okay, so this course on compensation management is all about, if you have to pay, let's say someone is an entrepreneur and you are hiring a talent, how are you going to pay them? What are the basis of this, the pay? And as you all know that, as employees, we also understand that compensation is one of the important factors for us to continue in an organization. So this compensation management is all about, how to attract the best of the talent, not only attract the best of the talent, but also retain them. And, and in large organization and professional organization, this is a very specialized function where you have, compensation and benefits managers who advise the leadership team in the organization how the employees in the organization should be compensated, and not only from the perspective of the employer or your managers or the leadership team, it is also about the employees who are working in the organization also have to perceive that the compensation which they are getting in their organizations are justified at the same time. Okay, so this is what we would be looking at, and here we are looking at 4 frameworks, in the sense that we are going to discuss about the pay model of pay model by Milkovich, which has got 4 pillars. What we call it as the one is the internal equity. The employees in the organization have to feel that across the departments the same level, they're paid equitably. The second one is the external competitiveness. Organizations do these surveys or they buy reports from what is called the syndicated surveys, and to see that what the compensation which is paid by within the organization, does it match up with the external world or in the similar industries, and to see whether they are competitive. And there are 3 levels, either you can lead, or you can lag, or you can meet at the competition level. So we'll look at whether it is in line with the industry competition which is paid. And we also look at that it is not only about the it's not only about the compensation from the manager's perspective or the leadership perspective. It is also about the performance which the employees are also responsible for to drive the results. And we would look at what is the contribution that the employees would making to earn their salaries. And apart from that, it is also important that whenever there are some changes in the compensation practices in the organization, how well it has to be communicated and how well you will administer those things. So these are the broad aspects which we'll be covering over the next in the sense the 6 sessions across. And to tell you, in a nutshell, compensation management is all about getting the attracting the best of the talent, and not only attracting but also to retain them, because no organization wants to have the hire employees for short term, because it's a long-term relationships which the organizations look for. So it's important that you pay them well, you compensate them well, attract the best of the talent, and retain them for a longer time. So that's the entire objective of the compensation. I hope I made this clear. Thank you very much. Over to you, Professor Rajan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next, I'd like to go to the next one, which is FM. In FM, I have Professor Abu Bakr Siddiqui, who speaks about, who basically covers SAPM and FDRM, the first 2. This will be followed by Professor Santosh Chandrasekhar, who will be going to talk about project appraisal and financing. Abu Bakr, sir, very good morning and over to you.
Thank you, Professor Rajan. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Loud and
Yeah. Good morning, all. So coming to my subjects, that is finance. So whether one likes it or not, finance is part of everybody's life, and the subjects that is part of your curriculum forms the core teaching in most of the universities like IIMs, CFA, CA finals, and universities abroad as well. So I mean, just I want to clear something. That finance is not accounting, and students with engineering background will like it too. So we have 3 subjects: SAPM and project appraisal and financing. So in SAPM, so you have around 30 to 40% of theory, rest is numerical, and in FDRM, it's just 20 to 30% theory, rest is numericals. So in SAPM, so before I move on to the subjects, so there are students who got back their investment by pursuing the subject passionately. So in SAPM, we teach basics investments. Basically 5 modules, so basics of investment and capital market. So in the 5 modules, what we try to cover is basically to make sure that one understands the investments, equity market in detail, and the bond market, followed by fundamental and technical analysis, and how to construct and analyze the portfolio of any individual or a firm. Then in FDRM, that is financial derivatives, we will be studying about derivative market in detail, covering mostly all the 4 tracks, basically your futures, forwards, options, and swaps in detail. Yeah, that's it, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Santosh sir, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, all. In terms of project appraisal and finance, so here you would have already come across what is project and what are the elements which we need to consider, like marketing and technical feasibility. Especially in this chapter or in this curriculum, in this what we're going to see, we're going to see what is the source of finance, like what is the cost of capital and various investment criteria like NPV, IRR, and payback period. And also we'll see the network, how the activity should be taken from one kind of one activity after the other activity, considering various resources like people and finance in term finance, keeping those things in mind actually. So overall I can say that for the FM, the topic what it is here, so that is kind of meant for any IIM or any CA course actually.
Thank you. So, Professor Santosh, that's all. I'll move on to the next one.
Yes, Professor, you can.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So next is marketing management. We have three faculty over here. I basically teach advertising and integrated marketing communications. For consumer behavior, we have Professor Karunakara Kudupu, who's not there in the session today.
Sound. Here then.
Can everyone mute if you're not talking? Mr. Pawan, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Yeah, so we have Professor Karunakara Kudupu, who will be teaching all the marketing students consumer behavior and research. We have Professor Indranil Ganguly, who will be teaching social media marketing. Both of them are not there in the session today, so I'll be taking you through the marketing specialization as such. So in consumer behavior, we will be speaking about a marketing concept in terms of segmentation, in terms of targeting and positioning, customer value satisfaction, retention, the consumer motivation, what are the consumer perceptions as such, consumer attitude formation. Then we'll also, because research is an integral part of consumer behavior, we'll be also covering one segment on research, which basically speaks about the marketing research and the marketing research processes. What are the different types of marketing research, the primary, secondary, the analysis, research data, and the report writing as such. Next, coming to AIMC, which is advertising and integrated marketing communications, we will understand the role and importance of IMC and its critical importance in the process. In this, we'll also be talking about objective setting, setting Marcom objectives, hierarchy of Marcom effects, etc. What is the advertising message? What are the sources, the channels, the effect, how to create effective ad messages? What are the? We'll also be covering, in depth about media planning. What are the various media vehicles? How is typically, media planning that happens in an advertising agency or a media agency? We'll be covering public relations as well. And in social media marketing, we'll be covering a lot about digital marketing, more so in relation to social media marketing, because that's really huge in this age and time. So Professor Indranil Ganguly will be covering about digital marketing. So that's pretty much about MM. And also, I want to add over here, going forward, we request all our students to be participating in the respective clubs. If you're from HR, if you're from finance, please be part of the respective clubs. I'm sure many of you are there. Please attend those clubs, because what we normally do is, whenever we cover any of these, through any clubs, when we come out with these kind of initiatives, many of them sometimes are beyond the curriculum. Many of them are part of the curriculum, but in a much more detailed, which comes from a SME or the subject matter expert. So it gives you a great depth and understanding about the course that you have signed in for. So I think it's very important that you must be doing these kind of things. We do for curiosity. Similarly for Vriddhi and Yukti and all these courses, all these specializations, we cover them through the clubs. So it is requested all the students to participate, so that you have a much deeper and a wider understanding about your subjects. Yeah, that's pretty much about marketing. I'll move on to the next one. So this is business analytics. I have introduction to analytics, I will let Shankar sir cover this, followed by prescriptive analytics, which is again covered by Shankar sir. Predictive analytics, I have Professor Amarnath, so he'll be speaking about predictive analytics. Shankar sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Rajan. Okay, now basically, as an overview, analytics is very important. It is more about decision making in management. There are three kinds of decision we all know: strategic, tactical, and operational. Now, all of them require decision making, which are dependable. All decision involves risk, particularly if it's strategic or tactical type, because they're related to little future point in time. Tactical usually 1 to 2 years, and strategic could be 3 to 5 or even 6 years. The decision that we take today could have big risk. So the process of analytics helps us in identifying, evaluating the decision alternatives, choosing the best among them. Overall, analytics is all about management decision making, no matter which field you are. As we started off, HR, human resource is absolutely vital. Analytics is about skilling managers in taking effective decision, no matter which field you are, whether you are in marketing, finance, or supply chain, logistic, whatever. Analytics plays a vital role. I will cover the first two and leave it to Professor Amarnath to say his part. Introduction to analytics covers mostly about descriptive analytics, while introduction about analytics is spoken in general, comparing all the three types of analytics. It also covers descriptive and diagnostic analytics. Descriptive, we would like to know what's happening, okay? We should remember one thing: management is all about decision making and performance management. And if we have to manage performance, we should know where are we today in relation to where we had to be. Where are the challenges? Where have we slipped? So those inputs will enable us to take corrective course of action. Descriptive analytics brings that insight to us using various tools and methods and tools in that order. Diagnostic analytics will help us to diagnose a given situation. Why are we not where we should be? What should we be doing? Okay. And then predictive analytics, I leave it to Professor Amarnath. Prescriptive analytics, as the name suggests, I want to expand plant capacity. I want to get into a new product, want to launch a new product into market. What is the set of action we prescribe to make that happen successfully? Whether we have evaluated the risk, okay? Then how much finance is required, okay? Plus, what are the what are payback period? You learn in finance, but all of them use analytics process to determine. If you have to take a decision for a project which will fructify 5 years from now, you have got to do everything right in taking decision first time. But the situation evolves continuously. We cannot foresee everything. There is a need to also constantly monitor, taking stock of where we are and doing course correction. So subject of analytics covers all this. Over to you, Professor Amarnath.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining this call. So, as Professor Shankar spoke about introduction to analytics and prescriptive analytics, I usually cover the predictive analytics part, which is mainly into causal modeling. So that's what I specialize in. So day in, day out, I also consult companies regarding, and I teach aspects of predictive analytics. So this thing, I'll be covering 5 important problem statements of predictive analytics, such as prediction, classification, tree models, segmentation, and time series. So these are the 5 methods which I cover as part of my causal modeling classes here. So one will be an introduction to predictive analytics class. So this will have, each one of will have a diverse of some mini case studies with regard to HR, finance, marketing, and so on and so forth. So this is the data analytics working hands-on. So good that everybody who will be a part of this predictive analytics class will have to learn, go to R programming language and with hands-on sessions on R. And rest apart, like it is necessary to brush up your research methodology course where you have been taught something with regard to statistics and so this will be very part and parcel of this thing. A lot of statistical methods and all will be a part of this. So I request everybody to really brush up those things which were taught as part of your previous trimester. So that's the hands-on session with regard to R. So you need to do all this 5 different aspects which will be covered as part of the predictive analytics. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. One last point I forgot to add. One last point. We also have tie-up with world leaders in analytics process. We have Dataiku platform, DSS. We have, and you get to work on the platform as part of analytics, AI, ML. AI, ML, we won't be considering much. We also have UiPath and Tableau, which help, and we have in our lab all these tools available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I move on to the next one, I realized Professor Sai Kumar Chandrasekhar also is part of this session. Sai Kumar, sir, sorry I missed out calling you. Good morning, sir, and over to you.
Yeah, good morning, Professor Rajan. That's okay. Actually, I had some initial problem with the joining. That's fine. Am I audible? Am I?
Yes, sir. Loud and
okay.
clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks everyone. So welcome students and professors. I take the introduction to analytics part, and basically I teach about the necessity of analytics in the organizations and how it helps the organizations to use various methodologies and the tools to adopt analytics. And I also teach some fundamentals that are required for programming in R, and I teach the various ways of data storage and how the data manipulation and how the data how to create the data for analytics. So I teach all these techniques in analytics, and I also teach the most important thing in analytics, which is the visualization part. So I think most of the projects, whatever projects they do, whether it is predictive analytics or prescriptive analytics, it has to go through a phase called as data exploration, wherein you have to look at the data and understanding and see what it is telling and talking about it. So then comes the predictive and prescriptive part. So that's one of the key things that I teach. And also, as Professor Amarnath and Professor Shankar mentioned, we also need to look at the various aspects of predictive and analytics, especially in predictive analytics. All the, it is used in every field, be it HR, finance, and, marketing or procurement, purchase. In all these departments, analytics is heavily being used. So it's one of the hot topics in the market, and it has become a very necessitating factor for the industries. So yeah, that's all I have to say about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next specialization, this is project management. So project management, we have all the 3 faculties over here. We have emerging areas in project management, Professor Archie D'Souza. Project planning and control, we have Professor M.G. Raghuraman, who has joined us all the way from US. We have project risk management, Professor Hari Ambadapudi, who is currently taking this course. Professor Archie D'Souza, good morning and over to you.
Yeah, thank you,
Archie,
Rajan.
sir. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Go on, sir.
Any problem?
Sir, go on. Archie, sir, go on.
Yeah. So
we cannot hear anything, Professor Rajan.
Archie, sir, we can't hear you.
To this great, very.
We cannot understand anything, Professor Rajan.
Sir, we can't hear you.
A key to almost.
Hello, sir. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I know. Archie, sir, we can't
There's a
hear
bit
you.
of a disturbance.
Yeah, can I request Professor M.G. Raghuraman to take up next, please? The next one, and we'll come back to emerging areas. M.G. sir, over to you. Good morning.
Okay, good morning, and thank you, Professor Rajan. I hope my voice is clear.
Yeah, clear enough, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So for students, welcome. And project management is something which is going to be something which you're going to enjoy. In the sense, in life, there are two things about any organizational work. Either there's operations or projects. Between the three of us, Professor Archie, myself, and Shankar, we will be covering the facets of project management. I will be teaching you project planning and control. 75 to 80% of the projects do not achieve their deadlines in time. Or can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So our effort will be in DSU to give you those insight tips based on our own corporate experience as well as project management techniques on how to make yourself into a good, effective project manager. The course is not about learning project management. The course is about you becoming good project managers. Everybody who studies engineering education doesn't become an engineer. They become engineering graduates. So between the three of us, the professors, we are working towards making you effective, efficient project managers in your work. So the course will be, including the assignments, the way we teach will be to help you reflect in your own work as to how you can become a better project manager. Two important aspects as far as I'm concerned in my course area will be project planning, right from the time a project is assigned to you, to planning it, implementing it, and controlling it. So I look forward to engaging with all of you who wants to do this. In my opinion, any good manager should know effective project management skills.
MG, can I just chip in a little bit?
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. And MG, you just look as if you have returned from the North Pole. When are you coming back to India?
Okay, I will be back in January. Right now I'm in Chicago. Is almost like the North Pole. It is minus 14 degrees centigrade here.
Good for you. We are fortunate to be staying in Bengaluru, India.
Yeah. So it's very cold, but look forward to engaging with all of you. And
No, I would just wanted to say very quickly that, you know, with the onset of artificial intelligence and so on and so forth,
Yes.
I think project management is going to be a fundamental human skill.
Yes.
How do you manage things going forward? How do you manage projects, large projects, and so on and so forth? How do you think through problems? And I would like even say Professor Shankar and so on to chip in. So I think project management is a very important skill. Sorry for joining late. I was in another meeting regarding our convocation, but here I am. Thanks, MG. Nice to see you and all of you.
I mean, just pitch in with the
let me just complete on what I was about to say. Yes.
And I'd like to chip in too.
Yeah, but let MG finish, please.
Yeah. See, today, whether you manage your sister's wedding, which itself is a project. A project means a specific objective by a clear timeline with a defined quality or expectations from the customer. Now, you see, anything can be a project. A lady student giving her dress to a tailor to get her salwar kameez stitched to a sister's wedding, or to celebrating a holiday abroad, or doing a work, creating a metro station, are all projects. And this is a skill which all of us need to have 100%. If you are in the management field, you need to have the skill. And trust me, at DSU, we will give you the best insights to making yourself as a good project manager, especially in these conditions of COVID times, pandemic, work from home, whatever. I'll stop with that, Captain, and then I'll request Shankar and Archie to speak.
No, Hari was to speak. So basically, Captain, you said, and it's nice to see MG. Fundamentally, we are in a changing world, and change involves project and project management. We talk of digital transformation, therefore we are looking at AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence, automation, digitize everything that you have to. That is the way world is moving. So that means we are perpetually in a project management stage. There's something or the other will be changing. So project and program management become key. Though I'll not be teaching that subject because I thought I should pitch in to say that's it. Professor MG, one small correction. I am handling only one subject. Project risk management is addressed by Hari Ambalapudi. So,
yes, sir. I would like to invite Professor Hari Ambalapudi to speak about project risk management. After that, I'll give it to Archie, sir, for speaking about emerging areas in project management. Hari, sir, very good morning and over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, sir. Loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear students, welcome to this session. Let me spend a couple of minutes on project risk management. Even before that, I was reading an article in HBR, November and December 2021. The title itself says, projects are going to displace operations as economic engines of our times. The way we normally operate in our organizations, operations are to sustain the things and projects are to define the things. That's the clear distinction between how we operate and how we want to operate in future. Keeping into account these two definitions of projects and operations, if we look back, 15 to 20% of the projects are always successful. There are many reasons why the projects fail, and one of the key reasons could be we normally may not do effective project risk management. If we do effective project risk management, to a large extent, we can actually avoid these challenges. In the course of project risk management, we'll be speaking more about what are the kinds of risk management strategies, be it qualitative or quantitative. There are numerous methods and tools which will help us understand what are these tools and in what circumstances these tools can be applied to. What we try to do as a part of this course, we try to get the context from everybody of us, including you. We try to superimpose these tools and methodologies, and we try to create a learning path for ourselves, saying that, hey, in this context, if you are going to apply this tool, what's the kind of benefit that we are going to see? To what extent we can avoid the risk that is going to, come and surround as a part of the project? While we are in the process of learning, we'll also apply ourselves to a couple of case studies and also try to take a lens of project finance. It is not only limited to finance and accounting. We also spend some time in understanding these evaluation techniques before really investing in any kind of risk mitigation methods. Risk mitigation methods doesn't come free of cost. You need to have a methodology, you need to have a process in order to finalize what's the most optimal combination of the risk mitigation methodologies that I need to go for, and you got techniques to do that. So these are the kinds of things that we are going to explore as a part of the project risk methodology. That's it, sir. That's it from my side.
Thank you, sir. Archie, sir, over to you, please.
Yeah, let me continue from where I left you. I'm currently in a rural part of Karnataka where the signals are bad. So that's why Rajan had asked me to put the video off. Now, as you've heard from Professors MG and Professor Hari and Professor Shankar, this is a very exciting field to study today. And today, every organization is getting involved in projects. Whether it is introducing a new software project into your company or constructing a township or even a city. The government spend on infrastructure has grown phenomenally, which means that India itself is going to need a lot of project managers who actually specialize in these areas. There are various new technologies today which are getting into project management, and artificial intelligence is definitely one of these areas. Now, you will be studying, when looking at emerging areas of project management, you will be studying about project charters. And today we are moving into a world of smart contracts, where contracts, self-generate and are entirely digital. So you are definitely getting into a very, very exciting field, and you have some of the best faculty like Hari and MG to actually deliver this particular subject. Yeah, Rajan. Yeah, Rajan, I've finished.
You are talking on mute, Rajan.
Sorry. Yeah. So next, moving on to IT specialization, I have Professor.
I just want to address the professors of project management, and because I think this is, of course, all fields are evolving, but this field is evolving rapidly in terms of how you manage projects. And so let me just give you a quick example. If you look at the Empire State Building in New York, it was built in a year and 45 days. They completed the project, 100-story building, the first one in the world, 7 days prior to the end. Amazing. When I worked on the World, that is in off Dubai, in 2007, we overshot it by a few years. So we don't seem to be getting better, So I think what you need to bring, particularly Archie, when you're talking about emerging areas in project management practices, I think you need to focus on a lot of new things that are happening in this particular area.
So this is definitely going to be part and parcel of what we deliver during the trimester, that I promise you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Good morning, Professor. I'm audible?
Who's this?
Yeah, Manu.
This is Manu Anand.
Yeah, Manu.
I got a quick question. I just wanted to understand what is the difference between having a PMP certification and a project management with MBA. Are both of them different, or else it's going to be an added advantage having a PMP certification?
If you want, I can take that question. I am a PMP professional myself. I did my PMP certification way back in 2003. See, PMP certification gives you focus skills on project management. But what we are going to cover in the DSU's course of MBA is to give you project management as a facet of overall management. Okay. I hope I'm trying to make this difference, a subtle difference. See, management is not only about project management. There are so many other things about management. Becoming a leader, becoming, managing people, managing stakeholders, and a few other things. So that way, I would think doing a project management course as a part of your MBA is different from doing a full-time professional course as a PMP. But the same breath, let me tell you this, if you go for a PMP certification, is good for you, because as the three professors, we will recommend, as after all, our course content will be largely built upon the basic tenets of PMP or PMI project management courses, but will not be limited to that. We are going to give you a little more treatise on project management as a part of the overall management in corporate world and in the work life. I don't know whether I made it clear to you, my dear friend.
I think point well made. And I want all of you to understand that you are not in a training school. We are not in a polytechnic. Yeah, we are in a university, and you are getting an education. So as a quick analogy, say before I got into this avatar, I'm a master mariner. I commanded ships. I have a master mariner's qualification. But then who qualified, say, Columbus or Magellan or so on? Did they have a similar qualification? But they did the same things. They navigated on ships around the world. So the fact of the matter is that this is a license, the PMP, which people recognize. We are, like MG rightly said, we are trying to bring many things together in sort of, in what should I say, in synchronous learning. And you need to, bring in other management practices to project management in running a project. So, and I think like he rightly said, it's a good idea to get a PMP certificate, but the executive MBA degree in project management is in an entirely different ball game altogether. It is meant to broaden your thinking.
Yeah. Great.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Riju Brata Chatterjee, I know you have a question. Please hold on to your questions. We will take it at the end of it because a lot of faculty are waiting to finish their bit. Yeah. Moving on to IT specialization, we have IT strategy for business, which is being taught by Professor Sriramu, digital enterprise by Professor Srinivas Iyengar, and product management by Professor Ravi Shankar Iyer. I would like to next call upon Professor Sriramu to basically talk to all of you about IT strategy for business. Sriramu sir, good morning, and over to you, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everybody. This course, and I'll give a brief overview about this. In the last few years, there has been game-changing conceptual shifts have occurred in the business management, right? What we typically called IT or ICT is information communication and technology, has been at the heart of these changes, redefining what it means to work, to be more productive, to provide a valuable service to the customer. So the value of the customer is becoming the heart of business and strategy, right? The business and the disciplines of information technology is becoming more and more intertwined, right? So we cover basically in this course, defining and executing an IT strategy, which is about fusion. Some people say fusion, alignment, and synchronization. There are multiple maturity levels in this, how you are going to align the two things, the technology and the business, right? So of three things rather, the business, technology, and the strategy. So the fusion of these basically defines your strategy of what we call typically IT strategy. The leaders of the driving, we have been hearing about a lot of digital transformation and all that, right? So this is the heart of that. The leaders of the driving digital transformation are expected to well-versed in technology, strategy, and business. Always remember three things: technology, strategy, and business, and are also expected to have knowledge of building and developing these digital services. So this is a kind of a overload of information, I can say. You need to be good in strategy, you need to be good in technology, you need to be good in basically your business mindset. So we will also cover the information technology, okay, driving the digital transformation, which is forming the business basis for your business processes, redefining your innovative business processes. So here we have a case where initially we started off with business processes, we have the technology, and now technology is redefining your business processes. So finally, we'll also provide a conceptual vision, in advancing business and strategy to change with technological trends, with the new paradigms in strategy like the blue ocean strategy, etc., where technology plays a key role in identifying these kind of blue oceans. So our desire is, at the end of the program, we want you to develop an unparalleled skill set that includes a firm grasp of the developments in information technology, that's the ICT typically what we call, as well as strategic and business innovation management disciplines. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Srinivas Iyengar, sir, next over to you, please, and very good morning as well.
Very good morning to you, and good morning to everyone. I'll be teaching digital enterprise to you. As a wise man once said, every business is a digital business, right? So today, most of the industries are getting disrupted by the digital technologies and the so-called companies which are technology companies like Uber. Uber is a digital enterprise. It's a technology company, but not a cab company. But they're really giving a run for money for all the cab companies, right? So what do we teach here? You as managers, if you're working in a current state in the current companies and you are part of IT strategy and management, you really got to understand the first part of it is how to build a digital enterprise like Uber. And second aspect of it is, if there is a digital enterprise company which is giving you a competition, how can you really sustain? And it becomes a strategic inflection point for you. So either you perish or you move on and you come over the competition, get over the competition that you have. So for that, you as leaders, you really got to understand technology in either of the states. For example, if you do not know artificial intelligence, if you do not know how the technologies are getting transformed, you will never be able to strategize in a company like Uber. At the same time, if you are working in a company which is in competition to Uber, you still need to know what kind of technologies are available at your disposal for you to build a digital enterprise. So in this syllabus, we teach you what a digital enterprise is all about. How do you really go on and build a digital enterprise? What are the technologies that are available today? And what technologies were available in the past, in the last 10 years, and how these companies were built? And what kind of technologies are going to be available for you in the future in next 5 to 10 years? We're going to talk about that also. And our endeavor is to prepare you to take up such responsibilities. So that is what we teach you in digital enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to call upon.
Srinivas, good morning.
Yeah.
And nice to see you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good. You must have seen that article where, there is a framework from the US and of course listed by the Harvard Business Review that has listed Bengaluru as the 5th most, what should I say, largest hub for AI.
Yes.
You must have read that report. Yeah.
Yes, I've read that report, sir. So we've been talking about this, right? AI is one of the important technologies in the world today. That is what Microsoft CEO was also saying when they bought Nuance about 6 months ago. So every business today has an AI aspect to that. So while we are building digital enterprise or while we are teaching artificial intelligence, we just don't need programmers. Only 20 to 30% of programmers are required today in the companies. We are badly in need of managers who can really deliver these things today. So that is what we are trying to build in DSU.
So the point is that maybe you can run a short 1-week course on, a managerial understanding of artificial intelligence for people who take this specialization, to give them an idea about really how the world is changing with respect to AI impacting business.
Yes, sir. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Just think about it, and those students who take the specialization, I think should sort of go through this 1-week course.
Sure. I'll be more than happy to do that, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'd like to call upon Professor Ravi Shankar Iyer, please. Sir, good morning and over to you.
Good morning and thanks, Professor Rajan. Welcome, everyone. This course, the title is Product Management, seems, very self-explanatory, but it isn't, okay? I think what has been alluded earlier is, the whole world has changed a lot and there's a lot more focus on the digital transformation, fintechs and startups, right? So what this course really covers is actually tries to make you aware with a lot of hands-on focus on what are the skills required to be a product manager. And a product manager is very, very distinct from a project manager, which I think we talked about, and also as a program manager. At the core of it is the responsibility that comes in when you actually take on a product management role is you wear multiple hats, which is one is towards the business, towards marketing, how do you take it to the market? At the same way you have development. So I think the focus of this program is multiple things. One is look at what the end-to-end product journey is, and I think you'll find it's probably quite different from what you find unless you are in the IT sector. Okay. The second is many things. While this course is not to teach you how to program, I think one needs to get into the technical foundations. What is the modern software stack being used as product managers? What are the methodologies? What are the concepts of system design? What are the concepts of user experience? And how do you do rapid prototyping? And also look at what are the aspects of product strategy and the management aspect of things. Yeah, so it's a very, very fundamental program, especially for those which is obviously in the technology stream who are trying to evolve both from a career and you're moving up the ladder. And in the modern world, if you don't have one facet or understanding of product management, it's going to be very, very hard for you to move out from a traditional role. Yeah? So that's what this program is about. There's going to be a lot of reading. There's going to be a lot of hands-on work to some extent. Even if you have never done understanding of what HTML is, I think you need to understand how things are rendered and the like, examples. Yeah. So that's what this program is about. It's a pretty exciting program because it's much more tuned to be current to what's happening in the world around us. Yeah. So that's really it.
Thank you, sir. Next, we move on to supply chain management. So we have IT in supply chain management. We have logistics and material management. We have sales and operation planning. IT in supply chain management will be taken by Professor Rahul Bige. Logistics and material management by Professor Tamal Das. Both of them are not there in the session today. Sales and operations planning, we have Professor Hari Ambadapudi. So I next call upon Professor Hari Ambadapudi to discuss all these three courses with all you students. Hari sir, good morning once again and over to you, please.
Sure, sir. Sure. Just a bit of prelude before we really get to understand these three courses at a very broad level. Businesses are always subjected to risk and uncertainty, and some of the popular examples that we recollect these days are COVID and the Suez Canal fiasco. And we also understand the rise of e-commerce and closing down of lots of ports. More importantly, the changing channel mix when it comes to delivery of goods and services to the people. They all lead to newer designs of supply chains. Different organizations actually react differently to the kind of supply chain risk they face. And more importantly, there's a real big difference between reacting and responding to risk, while responding is a very matured way of dealing with risk. And as we all understand, supply chain risk will have a profound impact both on top line and bottom line for any organization. Building supply chain resilience is the need of the hour. And if we come back to DSU, teaching supply chain cannot be really unidimensional. It's not only about theory. It's not only about practitioner experience. It's going to be a blend of these two things. Here at DSU, we got faculty who has got academic brilliance along with seasoned practitioner experience. So that's the combination of the faculty who will be handling all the three courses for all of you guys. Let me spend a couple of minutes on these courses. When it comes to sales and operations planning, most probably I'll be handling this course. What we are trying to understand is the fundamentals in the planning, which will impact the bottom line of the company and also top line. We'll also cover demand management fundamentals, demand forecasting, techniques, and what kind of tools and what kind of softwares are used in SNOP, which will give you an overview of how this the course gets unfold. When it comes to logistics and material management, the primary focus here is on execution. While SNOP is more on planning, logistics and material management is all about execution. If you observe, we are trying to cut more or less all the planning horizons in the supply chain, both planning, strategic, and execution. We'll focus more on the different modes of the transportation. What are the trade-offs between them? How is logistics going to be an enabler in helping the customer service? How are procurement and logistics going hand in hand, etc.? These are some of the aspects that we are going to focus on, logistics and materials management. When it comes to IT strategy, we'll understand more about how the supply chain IT strategy is going to sit in the overall IT landscape of the organization. What are the areas of alignment between these two areas or functions within the organization? And how do we go about planning IT strategy, particularly when in the area of this big data revolution and also massive explosion of all these sensors and IoT technologies? How is supply chain going to benefit? At the end of the day, how are we going to impact supply chain planning and execution while creating an impact on the top and bottom lines? This will be supplemented by a lot of lectures and also case studies from HBR and Sloan management reviews. So this is the whole idea of the pedagogy or curriculum that we are going to help you with. Over to you, Professor Rajan.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have operations management. Operations management, logistics and supply chain, we have Professor Rahul Dige. TQM, we have Professor Satish Talikota, who is there in the session today. And then we have lean operations management, which will be taken care of by Professor Mohan Srinivasan, who's also not there in the session today. So I would like to invite upon Professor Amulya Panda to speak about logistics and supply chain management and lean operations management. Sir, over to you and very good morning.
Yeah, okay. Audible, right?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay. So let me just give you a broad overview about, what do we really understand by operations management. We use a multitude of products in our daily lives, like, right from the breakfast we eat, the dress we wear, the cars we drive to get to work, the machines, and so on, right? And we are definitely aware of the companies who produce these goods, services. But have you ever wondered how do these companies produce them? That's what exactly, is the study of operations management is all about. Operations management is what organizations use to transform the resources into the goods and services through a series of steps or activities, considering several factors, such as, what to produce, how to produce, and how many to produce, and when to produce. So how, when, where to store, deliver, and of course, sell these products. And of course, many more questions like this. So again, the question is, why is this subject so important in MBA? Now, a business like a human being is a living and breathing entity and need a regular checkup, in different areas of operation to assess its overall health. Now, operations management enables one to perform this checkup, for the businesses, spots potential issues and creates resolution before it is too late. An operations manager knows how to present these issues to the senior management and at the same time, putting them at ease with a solution. Okay, so this is actually the broad aspect of, what is an operations management. Now, so far as the course content is concerned, so obviously it will all start with what do really mean by, the transformation, how do the very activity of transformation from the raw materials to goods and services. Then, of course, there is a part which will cover, the creating a strategy for the operations management. Then, of course, it also covers, product design, the facilities planning, which of course includes the location and layout planning. And layout planning comprises of something like whether it should be assembly line planning, assembly line or product focused layout, or just process focused layout, or fixed layout, and so on, right? So then comes the production system, like whether it's going to be a batch production system or mass production system. So these are all kind of our flow production system, jobs of production system, and so on, right? So then there is a strategy in terms of whether it will be a manufacturing to stock or assembly to manufacturing to sale, and so on. So then, of course, there will be some aspect called the balancing production. So wherein this is where the application of lean manufacturing is very, very vital. Okay, and besides this, there are aspects like how do we utilize the capacity? What do we really understand by capacity? How do we improve the capacity? How do we really make the manufacturing as an economics of scale? So then what is the best operating level, safety capacity, capacity planning, and so on. So besides this, there will also be a subject in manage inventory, and of course to manage quality, and wherein you'll know more about the various quality framework and methodologies. And besides this, again, you'll also come to know about various technologies and operations, meaning, what are the advancement which is happening in the area of operations management. That's it from my side.
Thank you, sir. Next, moving on to entrepreneurship. So we have three courses within entrepreneurship: Introduction to Entrepreneurship, Opportunity Identification and Generating of Ideas, Positioning as an Entrepreneur, and Starting Your Own Business. So I have Professor Jitendranath Patri, who will be discussing about this particular specialization. This is the second last specialization. We'll finally end with global business. So yeah, Jiten sir, over to you, and very good morning as well.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Rajan. Good afternoon to you and to everybody, and Captain. I trust you're doing well. For me specifically, being part of a startup and seeing it grow from $200,000 to $2 million in annual revenue is absolutely sensational, right? And if you look around, you can read stories that inspire two 19-year-olds building possibly India's fastest unicorn, or a 50-year-old lady who set up and just recently launched a very successful IPO at the age when she started the organization at the age of 50. If this stuff inspires you, if you like to, if you're someone who likes to do something different, create a product that makes a difference to somebody, then this is the course for you. Because this is where you will learn, from a complete theoretical perspective, how you set up the organization, what you do, what are the kind of, are you set up for failure? Are you set up for, picking up an idea assessment, feasibility, etc. All of this is something that you learn here. So if you're out there and if you want to create that change and develop something that you want to really grow and make big, then this is the course for you. And not just from an entrepreneurship perspective, but even if you're working in an organization and want to be part of your company's innovation there, yeah, this will also teach you what you really need to look at and deploy there, so that you can become a much better player. Personally, for me, I think a course like entrepreneurship actually makes you a very well-rounded professional that allows you to see business from a 360 perspective. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing many of you this time as part of the entrepreneurship course.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jitin. Rajan, I just want to chip in here.
Yeah, sir, please.
You know, I think Jitin put in very well. Just to add, you know, as sort of, again, we have technology impacting business. Interestingly, several of the low-hanging fruit in terms of jobs will go away, are going away and will go away. That means many people will have to take greater responsibility and accountability at a younger age, as against what we did when we were sort of growing up and we came into the industry and so on and so on. In today's world, you can't survive in a job unless you are innovating and adding value. The good old days of passing paper from one table to another table and, you know, saying that I will manage people and that are, I think, done and dusted. You'll have to innovate, you'll have to be creative, you'll have to bring value, you'll have to show why an organization should actually have you, as against, you know, you starting your own organization. So I think while the opportunities are tremendous, people of your age and people who are younger have opportunities, but they also have challenges in that you have to be more visible in adding value. And I think one way of doing that is to be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur. You can choose, but having a good idea is fundamental. And even if you take some other specialization, I would recommend to many of you to come back and do this as a second specialization. But I think, because I think this is going to be fundamental to your careers as you go through organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I move on to global business, I just missed Professor Satish Talikota because he's there and he wants to speak very quickly about total quality management and operations management specialization. Satish, sir, my apologies for missing you out. So please, sir, over to you, and very good afternoon to you as well.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you, Professor Rajan. So my name is Satish Talikota, and you know, I take total quality management subject. So just a quick couple of things. TQM per se is some subject which cuts across all the functionalities of an organization. So it's something which engages the entire organization as well as the stakeholders the organization works with. Having said that, typically in today's world, well, the TQM was there a few decades ago, but DQM then and TQM now, there's a huge difference. So today, if you really, you know, look at the subject, this is talked about, you know, there are two major things which are impacting organizations. One is obviously the technology aspect, the disruption, the AIs, MLs, you know, the IoTs and all that stuff, which is pushing organizations to adopt the technology on one hand. On the other hand, you have this environment challenges. You see, the kind of products, raw materials which you have to use to manufacture things, the environment perspective, you know, the global warming and so on and so forth. So these two things are laying a lot of pressure on organizations in terms of their internal, you know, way of working, as well as their alignment with the customers on one hand and the suppliers on the other. So from that standpoint, there is one subject which really tries to bind the whole of this situation is total quality management in today's world. So therefore, the curriculum which we study, although we study the technical aspects of it, like, you know, we talked about quality function design, failure mode effect analysis, and, you know, we also talk about, you know, quality audits. We talk about quality management system. So what we are going to do in the class is that we are going to discuss case studies and look at them from the perspective of these disruptions, which are very much evident today. And you as executive MBAs, you know, senior management folks, you got to have that perspective of your organization. So from that standpoint, it's very, very important, subject, and it'll be a pleasure to have you in the class, and then we'll have great discussions in the case studies. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Professor Rajan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we move to the final specialization. This is global business. So I have global HR over here, global sales, marketing and distribution, and global finance. Global HR, I have Professor Shweta Tiwari, who will be taking you through global sales, marketing and distribution, Professor Trupta Shankar, and global finance, I have Professor Sai Baba. So Shweta, over to you for discussing about global HR. Thank you.
Largely teachers and well-wishers around it. And to some extent, friends and all that.
I think Shweta had to leave. Yeah, Professor Trupta Shankar, can you please cover both HR and marketing?
I will cover the HR part of it. Fundamentally, what we talk in global HR is we approach this subject from the multinational point of view. We can approach it from different points of view. One is, of course, the MNC part. The second is the culture part. We would look at probably two dimensions, the Hofstede's model and the Trompenaar model. And the third being from the labor market point of view. But this course is viewed from the MNC point of view, of which many of you work in an MNC. And within that, as a subset, we will closely look at the expat or the expatriate and what the expatriate goes through. And also talk about the cultural nuances of different countries. So that is the full purport of global HR. It's a very, very intriguing, interesting program or course, simply because many of you experience global HR at many levels. And so you will be able to relate. It is not some abstract course. So it's a very interesting course. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Professor Trupta Shankar, over to you for global sales and marketing.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajan sir. To set a context, we are basically experiencing global products on a day-to-day basis, like when it is pin to plane, whether it is the toothpaste that we use, or the cars that we drive, or technology that we use, or the entertainment, whether Netflix or Amazon Prime. So we have become net global consumer, and in a way, in some cases, we are global producers. So the course will talk about how we need to calibrate our marketing mix across different countries, across different cultures, and also across different geographies and different legal systems, as well as need to understand how effectively we can use the differential marketing mix to be successful. We also talk about how Unilever, Colgate, Netflix will be doing all these case studies and understand how these companies have made big across the world. And we also will be analyzing the global consumer behavior, have the global consumer behavior based on the which differs from country to country, and also the international trade frameworks, whether it is ASEAN or European Union, and how it impacts the global marketing scenario. So according to me, marketing is everything, and global marketing is, of course, is everything, and it has to be understood adequately, and it would be useful for all of us. That's it, Rajan sir.
Thank you. Professor Sai Baba, sorry, I mean, you are the last speaker for the day, so over to you, sir, and very good afternoon to you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Basically, I'll be dealing with global finance. But let me tell you that when we are going through a $5 trillion economy plan, that's what the government and India is intending to, look at NASDAQ, etc. If you look at NASDAQ profile and the components and the constituents, if you look at that way, many of the Indian firms are getting into the NASDAQ listing. What does this mean is that by and large, many of the Indian companies are growing out and becoming global. So that part of it is a separate dimension from the stock market point of view, from the finance raising point of view, etc. So you need to have a good appreciation of the same. But you may also one question as to I am not, my company is not going to get into NASDAQ, then why should I study global finance? If you look at ECB's borrowing, etc., all the way, etc., because of the cost of capital and the way to raise finance, etc. Look at, because of the pandemic in US, interest rates are almost zero and inflation adjusted interest rates are negative. So that's a good opportunity to raise finance. In that context, you being an Indian company, not even participating in across the globe, will have a great opportunity to reduce the cost of capital by sourcing finance from externally. So that is one part of it. You look at firms which are going into mergers and acquisition as a part of what we call the inorganic way of growing. In that also you have got a greater role to play to understand. Mind that Bangalore is the source to CMM level 5 companies. Almost 120 companies are CMM level 5 companies. That means you have got a greater potential. So all these things, nuances are all translated in terms of dollars and euros, etc. You need to have a good understanding of interconvertibility and how to manage. At one time, see, look at Reliance, etc. Their petroleum, it's not the process of the crude being converted into petrol is a simple technical process for which already the plant has been established. Then what makes the difference is the way you buy. So in which currency you buy and how do you buy, when to buy, all needs an understanding of the finance. So that's why in Jolly Makers Chamber, Reliance has got about 20 people who always think 24/7 as to how we can manage. That's one part of it. Second thing is India is today into what you call current account convertibility. We have to move, we are moving towards capital account convertibility. What does it mean to you? You can open a bank account in India in dollars without being questioned by RBI. That is what we are trying to move it out. So all these things are going to have an influence on that. Whether it is global HR, how do we compensate if a guy working in US on Indian roles, etc. These are the things you need to understand, and you will have a good grip and understanding of what we call global finance and its nuances. So how do we convert, which conversion is better, at what time we change, all these things are important for us. Then we have seen what we call Kane taking into arbitration crisis. There is a crisis there. There is also a crisis of what you call Vodafone, and those things also you need to have an understanding as to how your foreign counterparts are going to react. So all these things you are going to get captured through case studies of Harvard Business School and what you call Californian Management Review. They've got full potential case studies are there, which will be dealing with that. So we will be dealing all of them in the global finance. So I heartily request you to take it up as serious topic as specialization in global finance. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Before we open up the questions, very quickly, so all students are supposed to fill the Google Forms and submit them to us by EOD next Sunday, 2nd Jan 2021. No further changes will be accepted. We will meet again before your commencement of your T4 session to discuss Capstone project. So we have, I mean, of course, the date and time are yet to be fixed, but it will happen during the week of 3rd to 9th January. So we will speak about your Capstone project, your project guides, what are the do's and don'ts of the project, and what are the deadlines and the important milestones. So these points will be covered in the next session. After that, you have to take it forward with your respective mentors or guides, whoever we are assigning you with. So that comes to the end of the today's session. I would like to next open this session for any questions and answers. Riju Brata, I think you have a question, so you can now ask your question, please.
Yeah, hi sir, good afternoon. So I basically want to ask about the project management part. So I have around close to 9 years of experience in the IT field. I work in a US-based tech company, and what I want to do is I want to move to a more techno-functional role wherein I can handle employees and also manage the day-to-day functioning of the project. So, is the project management specialization specific to any field, or is it a generic project management thing? And also, the second part of my question is, what should be the basic differences between ITM and project management? So that is my question.
So I would like to call upon Professor MG and Hari sir, both of them, if they can answer this, followed by Ravi Shankar sir, if he can speak a little about ITM as such.
Yes,
MG sir, and
yes, sir.
Also
Yeah.
RT sir, if he has anything to yeah.
Let
So
me
please go on.
let me take it up, and then probably Professor MG and Professor RJ can pitch in. When it comes to project management, right? What I understand is you are currently working in IT firm. What we deal in project management is more about the comprehensive approach to manage, conceive and manage the projects, and it is domain agnostic. When we talk about project, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When we normally talk about projects, construction industry comes to our mind, but there are many other industries like mining, IT, even textile. Everywhere, effective project management is needed, and it is going to give results. So, to your first question, are we going to focus only on a specific domain or specific industry? No, it's actually industry agnostic. We got case studies that covers many domains as a part of our curriculum. That's one thing. And how is it going to help you in moving up the ladder? You are going to, move up the value chain of the entire project management activity. In what I understand is you may be focusing on some of the aspects of project management in your current role, but you'll get an opportunity to take a bigger picture, starting from project conceive stage to the project closure stage, and you'll be actually getting exposed to all the methodologies and tools along with all the context from various industries. So this is what I wanted to respond to your question number one. Was I able to answer your question before I hand it over to other professor?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was very clear. Yeah. Thank you.
Professor Rajan, probably,
Ravi Shankar sir, you have anything to add with respect to ITM? Because the student had a question in terms of specialization between PM versus ITM.
Professor Ravi Shankar, just give me 10 seconds. Yeah. So I think this is the point I was making earlier. So most of your learning is going to be domain agnostic, and this cannot devolve into a training school. So we will give you a broad idea about what is happening in a particular industry. You can feel free to go and pursue further learning in terms of tools, licenses, and so on and so forth. So whoever asked that question, this applies to most specializations, and I would urge all students to carry out some amount of self-learning. Please talk to the professors and understand what are the specific tools you'll have to learn in each specialization. Yeah. The program will not, rarely will go into specific tools as a part of the teaching pedagogy, the curriculum. Yeah.
Professor,
over to you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what Captain said is
Ravi sir, I think we lost you.
Yeah, it faded off.
Yeah. He's having some net issues, I guess.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine. Sir.
Yeah. Sorry. So I think the ITM specialization in particular dives deeper. If you look at, there are 3 courses, right? One is product management, which I talked about. There's a digital enterprise, and there's going to be also artificial intelligence, the IT strategy. So it really is going to give you a much more deeper view of how these enterprises are organized, what is the importance of digital, what is the importance of the role of product management. So it does not say which industry it is. So to your question, it's really about IT strategy, digital enterprise and transformation, product management rules. So this actually prepares you for much more senior technology roles, or if you essentially wanted to get to the management of technology, then it's really going to help you in that path. But just to echo what the captain just said, it's not going to tell you how to, it gives you the roadmap, it tells you enough details for you to read, and you can continue.
So I think we lost you again.
Sorry, I don't know where this, but I think this course gives you a career boost in the IT world. It's not specific to a particular domain or industry. It applies to all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, Professor, very good afternoon to all the professors who are here. Professor, I got a bit dilemma in these two specializations. One is business analytics and ITM. Just now I got a clear picture on the ITM, but I need a clear picture on this business analytics, because nowadays it's one of the most fastly growing up specialization it is. So may I know a little bit more about the business analytics part, and what are the roles that we can expect in the industry?
Sure, Professor.
Sir, just a second, sir. In continuation with Yadunandan's question, I have a couple of questions regarding the same topic. So is there any pre-requirements for business analytics, like any Python programming or something? And second is, do we get to learn any tools like Power BI, Tableau or something like that?
Yeah. So before Professor Amarnath, Professor Shankar get in, tools will be suggested. You can feel free to go and learn them yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. Professor Amarnath, Professor Shankar are there. So
Yeah.
this is a management program. Yeah, we're not teaching tools.
Yeah. So can I continue, Captain?
Please.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I think I heard you saying that what are the roles one can expect if you try to do this kind of a thing. So it is basically like, I can say roles are different. So if you pursue in the format of a data science or something like that, then the track is entirely different. This is mostly, I can say, the managerial aspects of business analytics. So it is more or less managing a project. So, or I can say that, so if you have data, solve any of the problems, as I told you that especially all the professors would be covering some kind of mini cases in terms of probably would have had all the course, the basic fundamental courses done in HRM, finance, marketing and all. So with related to data, so I mean to say today, every aspect of a business produces lots of data. So if you have those kind of a data in any of the managerial aspects or the management problems, if I have to say, then you can use this analytics tools to solve them. So either it can be like an attrition problem in HRM. So what are those kind of data required for that thing? So surely today it's a data-driven world or a digital world where all things are data, and more data. So if you have those kind of a data, you use this kind of methods which are being taught as part of your descriptive statistics, your prescriptive statistics, your predictive statistics. You have to relate to, as Professor Captain just spoke about the aspects, like we'll give a broad overview like how to solve. You have certain problems in analytics. Say, when I speak about segmentation, speak about classification, they're all kind of broad-based analytics problems and all. So you also face this kind of a thing in your day-to-day work. So you have to relate those things and try to
find out which of these methods will help them solve this kind of a problem. So that was one of the questions. Was I able to rightly answer you, or do you have any other?
He wanted to know whether Python is a prerequisite.
Okay, yeah, second. So tool is not important here. The aspects of how to understand the analytics aspects here. So when I say that we solve things using causal, when Professor Shankar mentioned about talking about prescriptive analytics. So like how to relate these things are very much important here. Tool is not important here, though we don't cover, as far as I know, Python is not covered as part of our course. Yes, we do give an introduction to R, so the programming language. So it is only an enabler to use to your problem. That's all. That's very much important here. So because that all are open source tools, need not buy them or whatever it is. Everything is freely available. So as far as predictive analytics goes, I teach them like how you have to really solve the problem using the tool. That's all. Tool is only about 10 or 15% of the issue. Rest is like understanding the problem. How do we catch the problem in the way of the predictive analytics definition goes? I mean to say in terms of whether it's a classification problem, whether it's a segmentation problem, or how do you want to solve that kind of a problem? So that is very much important here. And use the tool. From the tool, it outputs a lot of results. We'll pick those things which can be implemented, or probably you may have your client, or it might be your internal client, or for your own understanding, you are trying to understand something. Of course, any tool and the method especially will give out tons of output. The output, what we have to choose and how those things are implemented is what very much important, and that is thought. So is that does that answer your question?
Yes, Professor, that is answered.
Can I chip in? Just want to add, this descriptive analytics, prescriptive and predictive, basically, these are a problem solving technique. So even though many companies are creating roles on business analytics, they are actually recruiting folks as data scientists, but these have been traditionally are the ones which actually is required for all the managers as a problem solving technique. And so for example, if you want to, if the company employs, let us say Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma technique. So Six Sigma is the one wherein you need to use all these three, descriptive, prescriptive, and to a great extent predictive also. So then, so it is required for all the managers, how to analyze the data, how to, get a sense of what is the data saying. And so far as the tool is concerned, there is a very famous tool, Minitab, if you have heard of. That's actually widely used globally. But besides this, there are many other tools, and of course, R programming is also the one which is an open source tool. Minitab, you have to have a license for this. I think that's it from my side.
Great. So Professor Rajan, this whole thing about, can I end with a story and,
yes,
take
sir, please.
2 minutes to bore people a little bit with one of my stories. And, students, this is from the 1920s. And it's about a guy called Charles Steinmetz. I'm sure most of you would not have heard of him, but he's the one who worked a great deal on the alternating current. And he taught at MIT, he consulted with General Electric. And the story goes, of course, this story is in various forms, but the story goes that he was once invited because there was a massive motor that was not working properly. And they called Steinmetz to find out what was the problem. And as you know, Thomas Alva Edison. So Steinmetz apparently came around, he circled the motor 3-4 times, and then he took a hammer, your tool, tapped on the casing, and then said, here is the problem, open it and get it sorted out. And lo and behold, it was sorted out. He then sent a bill for $10,000, and Edison was, very annoyed. And he said, for hammering on the casing, you need $10,000. And he said, I've taken $1 for hammering on the casing with a tool. The $9,999 is to know where to hammer. So that's the story. So that's what we are doing here. Yeah, we are teaching you where to use the tool, and that's the story. The tool, please feel free to go and get it yourself.
Sir, also for all analytics students, since we have data
Commander
IQ
Joshi enjoyed my story. One person.
I had read about Charles Stevens earlier, so this story was familiar. And the moment you mentioned him, something started triggering me.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks to everybody, all our faculty and students who have sort of turned up here and on a Sunday morning, and wish you all a happy New Year in advance.
Thank you, sir.
Same to you, to all the professors. Happy New Year in advance.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rajan.
Thank you. Thank
Have
you.
a great day,
Yeah.
professors.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.